In 1961, Life magazine sent a photographer to New York's International Airport and wrote this: "Idlewild is more than the handsomest, highest-geared air terminal in operation. For 8 of 11 international travelers arriving in New York, the warming symbol of journey's end is no longer the Statue of Liberty. It is this glistening complex of architecture, strongly suggestive of a World's Fair site." 50 years later, a sitting vice president of the United States called American airports Third World. He was standing at LaGuardia, but everyone knew he was also talking about JFK. The airport that was supposed to be the front door of America, the first thing the world saw when it arrived in New York, had become an embarrassment so total, so systematic, and so uniquely American that architects and urban planners spent decades trying to understand how something so spectacular became something so broken. The answer starts not with a failure. It starts with a decision that seemed completely brilliant in 1955. By 1941, LaGuardia Airport was already full. It had been open 2 years and was already out of capacity, a problem that should have surprised nobody because New York was New York, and whatever you built for it was immediately insufficient. Mayor Fiorella LaGuardia looked at a golf course on the shores of Jamaica Bay in Queens, flat, large, adjacent to the water, and announced that this would be New York's new international airport. They began condemning land in 1943. Construction started while the war was still happening. The first flight departed on July 1, 1948, with the opening ceremony attended by President Harry Truman and Governor Thomas Dewey, 2 men running against each other in that year's presidential election, appearing on the same stage for possibly the only time in their lives. The airport opened with 6 runways and a single terminal. Within a year, they were expanding. By 1954, 6 years after opening, Idlewild had the highest volume of international air traffic of any airport on Earth. New York had built the busiest international airport in the world in 6 years on a golf course on a swamp. For one brief moment in the early 1950s, this looked like an unqualified triumph. Then somebody had an idea that seemed even better.
In 1955, the Port Authority released a master plan for what they called Terminal City. The concept was genuinely innovative, possibly the most architecturally ambitious airport development ever attempted. A single terminal building to serve projected traffic would have required a structure over 2 miles long. Planners discarded that idea. Instead, each major airline would design its own terminal, its own building, its own architecture, its own vision of what air travel should feel like. The result was extraordinary. Pan Am built the Worldport, a circular terminal with a roof that extended over the aircraft, so passengers boarded without stepping outside. United and Eastern opened in 1959, American and Pan Am in 1960. TWA hired Eero Saarinen, one of the greatest architects of the 20th century, to design their terminal. Construction required 3,200 cubic yards of concrete cast in 4 continuous phases using 3 45-ton cranes. The margin of error across the entire curved roof, 0.25 inches. When Life magazine visited in 1961, they called it a World's Fair site. Architects made pilgrimages. Young couples from Queens dressed up on weekends to come watch planes take off and have drinks at the bar. JFK was the most glamorous airport on Earth. Here is the problem nobody discussed in 1961, because in 1961 it didn't matter yet. The 9 separate terminals had no physical connection to each other. 9 buildings, 9 operators, 9 independent passenger experiences. To get from one terminal to another, you had to exit the building entirely. Planners accepted this in 1955 because 85% of JFK's passengers were beginning or ending their journeys in New York. They weren't connecting. They weren't transferring between airlines. They arrived, they departed, they went home. But aviation changed. The hub and spoke revolution of the 1970s and 1980s meant millions of passengers now needed to connect between airlines, between terminals that had been designed by different architects for different airlines with no relationship to each other whatsoever. The decision that made Terminal City brilliant for 1961 made it structurally broken for 1985. And everything that came after was an attempt to fix a foundation that had been poured wrong from the very beginning. Through the 1970s and 80s, JFK accumulated problems the way airports accumulate delays, constantly and without resolution. In 1970, JFK hosted the world's first commercial Boeing 747 flight, operated by Pan Am. In 1977, Concorde began service. The airport that started as a swamp was now receiving the fastest passenger aircraft ever built. For a moment, it felt like the future was arriving on schedule. Then, the airlines that made JFK legendary started dying. Pan Am, which built the Worldport, which operated the first 747, which was synonymous with American aviation prestige, collapsed in December 1991. Their terminal was eventually demolished in 2013. The circular masterpiece with the overhanging roof is a parking lot today. TWA, which commissioned Saarinen's architectural icon, which had filled that terminal with Calder mobiles and the first closed-circuit television displays in any airport, went bankrupt in 1992, briefly revived, went bankrupt again, and was sold to American Airlines in 2001. After the sale, Saarinen's masterpiece closed. It sat empty for 13 years. One of the greatest buildings of the 20th century, locked and dark, surrounded by active airport operations. By 2012, Travel Plus Leisure ranked JFK one of America's worst airports. Skytrax put it 59th in the world, behind airports in countries that didn't exist when JFK was built. The fundamental problem never changed. 9 terminals, 9 operators, no physical connection. Exit security, board the air train, pay $9.25, re-enter security. In an airport serving 62 million passengers a year, many of them connecting internationally, that is not a minor inconvenience. It is a structural failure built into the concrete in 1955 and never corrected since. Singapore built Changi, free interterminal transit, unified passenger experience, single coordinated system, and passengers voted the best airport in the world year after year. JFK charges $9.25 to change terminals, one way.
In January 2017, Governor Cuomo announced what he called a vision for a new JFK, a transformation, a reimagining, the most expensive airport renovation in American history, $13 billion, later expanded to $19 billion. Some of it is genuinely impressive. The TWA Hotel opened in 2019. Saarinen's empty masterpiece resurrected as a 505-room hotel with a rooftop pool overlooking the runway. Passengers who never flew TWA can sleep inside the building TWA built and watch planes take off at dawn. It is, by every account, spectacular. New Terminal 1 is rising, a $9.5 billion facility designed to be among the most modern terminals ever built in the United States. Terminal 6, a $4.2 billion JetBlue facility, is under construction. Delta's Terminal 4 is expanding. American's Terminal 8 is being rebuilt. Here is what $19 billion does not fix. The terminals are still being built by separate private operators. Delta owns Terminal 4, American controls Terminal 8, JetBlue anchors the new Terminal 6. Terminal 1 is operated by an international consortium. 4 different operators, 4 different passenger experiences, 4 different check-in systems, 4 different security queues, with no coordinated connection between them. When construction is complete, sometime around 2030, a passenger arriving on Delta and connecting to American will still exit security, board the air train, pay their fare, ride to the next terminal, and re-enter security on the other side. The 1955 decision that each airline deserved its own building survives $19 billion of the most expensive construction in American airport history, undefeated.
Singapore built Changi, all 4 terminals, the jewel rainforest centerpiece, the entire system for approximately $9 billion total over 40 years. JFK is spending $19 billion and will still have disconnected terminals that charge passengers to move between them. Here is the complete picture. New York built its international airport on a swamp in 1948 and immediately ran out of space. In 1955, they made a decision that looked visionary. Let each airline build its own architectural masterpiece. The result was the most spectacular airport ever built. Structurally, it was a system designed for a world that stopped existing in the 1970s. When aviation became about connecting passengers rather than point-to-point travel, JFK's disconnected terminals became its permanent liability. Pan Am died, TWA died. Their empty masterpieces became parking lots and hotels. The Airport Life magazine, called a World's Fair site, was ranked 59th in the world. $19 billion is being spent. New terminals are rising. The TWA Hotel glows beautifully at night, a monument to what JFK once was, preserved perfectly, surrounded by an airport still trying to become what JFK was supposed to be. But when the last crane leaves and the last terminal opens in the early 2030s, passengers connecting between airlines will still exit security, board a $9.25 train, and re-enter security on the other side. The decision made in 1955 will outlast $19 billion. JFK was built to be the front door of America, the most beautiful, most ambitious, most confident airport ever designed. The door is still there. It just opens into 4 different rooms that don't connect to each other. And fixing that, it turns out, costs more than anyone is willing to spend.